an app that the students at the University of the West Indies Mona campus would have developed. It is called Rush Alert, and it allows individuals to update trusted persons on their whereabouts. It allows for the addition of emergency contacts, and it alerts the campus police if you should send out a signal of distress. It has helped to increase the security of students traversing the campus. If the government collaborates with the university or the students who engineered the app, I am sure the scope can be expanded beyond the university and further wider Jamaica. I believe that making our citizens, and especially our girls and women, utilize this app or apps like these will significantly decrease the amount of Ananda alerts that are sent out yearly. In conclusion, they need to be constantly working on finding and keeping our young girls and women safe is of paramount importance right now. You may still argue that yes, we need programs in the educational sector to strengthen women and girls' access to knowledge and training related to high demand and emerging fields and the other things that you are proposing. But right now, we should be devising plans to keep the women and girls safe, plans to find them, plans to deter persons from taking them. Hence, I cannot fully support your motion. After all, if all the women disappear one day after another, who would we be making the programs you are proposing for? I agree with you, Ms. Ferron. It's a woman time now, but we are the woman government. We are the women. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member Morris.
Damn.
Member Ariana Dixon.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, Jamaica. The motion presented today, which I am elated to support, allows us to dissect the infrastructures in our country that perpetuate patriarchy, the driving force behind the systematic bias against women that leaves a disproportionate impact between our sexes. The disintegration of several industries as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic further deepens this gap. This is the reality of the world, and this is the reality of Jamaica. I'm aware of the assumptions surrounding the involvement of women in the respective industries of transportation and mining. Structural violence, a term coined by Johan Galtung, explains the negative power of social institutions and systems of social organizations among marginalized communities. Assessing this phenomenon through a gender lens allows these assumptions to be borne out into reality. Lahiri Dutt in 2015 declared extractive industries as sites of supernormal profits and supernormal patriarchy. Now, while my ministry has made strides to combat this claim, I still call to action reforms in our system to open the space for women to truly impact this industry. The Greenhouse Cluster Project, launched to benefit numerous farmers in bauxite mining communities in Manchester, had allowed farmers to receive training in business management, greenhouse production, water management, and marketing through a $192 million partnership. The inception of this initiative sought 20 farmers to spearhead the training for their respective communities. Madam Speaker, it's bittersweet for me to announce that of this number, 3 were women, with the following stage of the initiative shifting that 3 to 9. Though it is small in perspective, it's a great opportunity for us to recognize the interest that women have in partaking in this massive opportunity for areas of farming and mining in my constituency, and I urge us not to stop there. Now, in dialogue with the Member of Parliament for Clarendon Northern, I see that the concern for safe avenues of transit for the mobilization of women is not only an issue shared by Manchester Northeastern. The International Labour Organization has identified lack of transportation as the greatest challenge to female labour force, reducing participation in developing countries by 16.5%. This percentage calls for the regulation of the rural transportation system, which will increase access to transportation for women. Moreover, I call for the implementation of a logistics and transport operation course to be offered to women and girls with the intention to promote knowledge and skill in this field. Subsequently, this should serve as a catalyst towards women in appearing in managerial or supervisory positions within our public transportation system. This will raise the employment rates and mitigate the risks that target women. My ministry, my government, is committed to dismantling the structural violence against women. Madam Speaker, allow me to quote, "If you educate a boy, you train a man. If you educate a girl, you train a nation." Thank you.
Thank you, Member Dixon. Member Anicia Burton.
Madam Speaker, the government is currently confused and it's currently divided because you have a set saying that women empowerment is a right, and you have another set saying that men should be given more resources even though they were given the same opportunity. A divided government is a result to a divided nation. Madam Speaker, a moment of silence for another madness that the government has once more brought before this honorable House. Lest we forget that Jamaica was indeed a country of inequality before COVID-19, in which the government continues to pretend as if these issues weren't prominent before the pandemic, then it makes no sense we're here today. Madam Speaker, the National Policy of Gender Equality Jamaica proposes a society where women and men have equal access to socially valued goods and can be contributed to contribute to national development. This policy was passed in March 2011. When will this vision be achieved? As the opposition spokeswoman of Finance and Planning and MP of South East St. Andrew, I say, let us not waste our time creating new policies and chaos for both our citizens and the Supreme Court, Madam Speaker. Instead, the opposition is clearly stating that we should focus on the context of which inequality in the care sector and educational system, being an impact of the pandemic and economic circumstances with implications for gender, particularly our women and girls. Now, I noticed that the government has proposed an action plan to enact legislative initiatives and public programs on the care and economy. That is good. But how are we going to achieve this? Where will the money come from? The Jamaican Labour government stated that women are more affected by the economic crisis because they tend to earn less and are more likely to be burdened with unpaid care and domestic work. So why are we sitting and talking about new policies that will provide mentorship programs for the underachievement of boys? Clearly, the government is confused and aware of the policy that they themselves have passed in 2011. Why aren't we talking about period poverty? Or the fact that we have very few women doing skill-related courses because it is viewed as being masculine? We must discard that mentality. Why aren't we talking about the first $1 trillion budget? This is 2.3% more than the $998 billion budget for the year 2022-2023. Where is all of this money going? Clearly not in the care nor the educational sector. Statistics of the World Health Organization finds a raw gender pay gap of approximately 20%, which jumps to 24% when accounting for factors such as age, education, and working time. Madam Speaker, it is high time we address the bull in our society, and I'm not talking agriculture. $12 million for a sign? Wanna say, cut zinkalai? The fiscal year 2023-24 program budget's overall value of $581 billion. My question to the government, was gender equality a part of your budget plan this year? Or you plan to turn Jamaica into construction workers building signs in the 14 parishes? The opposition is proposing that this action plan or the action plan put in place should promote fair payment for all care sector workers and allow women in Parliament to play key roles in the construction of the budget plans in Jamaica. That way, I am sure we'll have more contributions being made in the care sector. After all, we are the ones being affected. If we have our women being employed in the same roles as our men, why should we be penalized in a lesser salary? Madam Speaker, it is 2023, and as Shensia once said, nanny never go to war, so we sit down in a 2020 slavery.
Thank you, Member Burton. Member Weston.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to support the motion. Today, more girls are enrolled in school. Women have more access to an education. However, despite progress, there are still many barriers that prevent women and girls from having equitable access to a high-quality education because of their gender and the ways in which their gender intersects with factors like age, ethnicity, poverty, and disability. This covers barriers that exist inside educational systems, institutions, and classrooms, as well as barriers to acquiring a quality education at all levels. Inadequate and hazardous schools, facilities including latchings, gender-based violence, unwanted or early pregnancies, a lack of inclusive and conducive learning settings, etc. Technology among women provide a wide range of successful tactics for highlighting the importance of equal opportunities for women's empowerment. Finding and supporting these programs is essential for gender equality and socio-economic growth. Many women are eager to develop and change the world, but we need to continue access to opportunities and good education. As is common knowledge, there are a number of emerging professions that society does not accept women to engage in, including woodworking, mechanics, coding, programming, building, and architecture. On average, women face an 11% greater chance of losing their jobs due to automation than their male colleagues. Hence, despite the fact that many men are losing their jobs to automation. Throughout our education sector, traditional topics are still considered to be more marketable. I firmly believe that in the 21st century, as times are changing, we should implement more technology courses and skills that will lead to greater employment. A solution is to provide a course that teaches students about financial literacy within our educational system. With this basic knowledge to inform their financial decisions, students will be able to make ends meet in the real world. Teaching financial literacy to children helps lower the overall number of adolescents who enroll in college before it demonstrates that, thanks to technological advancements. The creation and implementation are more inclusive programs for our women and girls that will assist them in realizing their unique talents and potential. To improve economic contributions through technological advancements, how can we make this stronger? How far along are we? And how far should we go? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Member Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My opposition? No one said anything about giving men access to more resources. Let's just make that clear. Also, I thank you for your contribution as well, my opposition, but we already have an application in the process. I rise to express how I am a victim of gender bias within an information technology setting. I stand here as the voice for every young girl and woman in IT who feels as if her efforts needs to be twice as hard as men to receive approval and validation from their superior. I stand here to remind you and myself that you are the epitome of greatness. You make a bag of sense as a Dalit. Just imagine a Jamaica, a Caribbean, a world where women and girls are given access to knowledge and training related to high demand and emerging fields to achieve global peace and women economic empowerment. This sounds like a song titled Prosperity, Unity, and Development. Not just development, but sustainable development. In an article titled The STEM, Women and Girls in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, it is estimated that women make up only 28% of workforce in STEM, and men vastly outnumber women majoring in most STEM fields in college. To close the gender gaps in information technology, we should create a program called Women in Technology and Digital Innovation, WITD, This curriculum will incorporate girls and women at primary, secondary, tertiary, and industry level, respectively. The objectives of this initiative will be, but not limited to, the following: re-socialization of girls and teachers at all levels. As teachers play a vital role in the pursuit of education, it is imperative for them to be aligned with the mission and vision of this initiative. Professional development of teachers should be provided to tackle the existing cultures of gender biases and to raise awareness that boys and girls are held at the same standards. 2. Cybersecurity awareness through clubs and competitions. There should be an expansion of after-school and summer opportunities for girls. Every student, and I repeat, every student should be exposed to engineering, computer science, and technology fields, especially IT security. As the Minister of National Security, I will start an initiative across Jamaican schools called Join the Program, Stop the Scam. This initiative would commence in my area, St. James, because in 2015, MOCA started an initiative across 4 schools in Montego Bay, and I commend their efforts. But we are in need of a constant initiative across Jamaica, since cybercrime is a constant issue. The creation of Women in Technology and Engineering Protection Union. Currently, there's a national policy for gender equality. However, the effectiveness of this is yet to be determined. Lastly, we have to protect our women. So an application will be created, to protect women, and the feature should be, but not limited to, the following: a feature that allows users to notify emergency contacts in case of an emergency, via message, location, photo, and audio. And a feature that sends notification when the phone is locked by shaking it 3 times or by pressing the button 4 times. In closing, Madam Speaker, before God, we are equally wise and equally foolish. Until we get equality in education, we won't have an equal society. Thank you.
Member Romans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wholeheartedly support the Government of Jamaica in achieving and prioritizing gender equality and women's empowerment, especially as it relates to the educational sector and to include digital innovation and information technology. Though there are many opportunities for women to receive higher education and job opportunities, we have identified that there were still gaps which women face based on years of gender stereotypes and socialization. The data shows that more women are enrolled in tertiary education than men. However, men are employed in the labor force, with men holding higher paying jobs. Madam Speaker, the Government of Jamaica has developed programs in the educational sector to strengthen women and girls' access to knowledge and training. One such program is highlighted through the integration of STEM: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fishery has partnered with the Jamaica Dairy Development Board to make impactful contribution to youth in agriculture, specifically women and girls, through the targeting of agricultural educational institutions. There were also the handing over of a mobile milking machine to the Sydney Pagan STEM Academy in St. Elizabeth, in which the machine will help with the swift extraction of milk, increase capacity for milking more cows, and improve on quality and safety of milk extraction. This, Madam Speaker, is part of a greater thrust to make an impactful contribution to young women in agriculture. We have also developed the Engender Project, which is enabling gender-responsive disaster recovery, climate and environmental resilience in the Caribbean to target young farmers, 175 young women. It is aimed to strengthen its resilience to climate change and help to pull vulnerable groups towards maximizing their true potential. And this will allow more women and girls to participate in the country's economic growth. Madam Speaker, they will be trained and certified in crop production, livestock production, fisheries, and value-added agriculture. Technical and coaching support will be provided towards the development of agriculture-based enterprises. Our goal at the ministry is to chart a course that will ultimately protect lives and livelihood, and our young people must lead this initiative to energize and lead the agricultural sector. Madam Speaker, continuing on this trajectory, the ministry continues to support women and girls in agriculture through new innovation and machineries. We also propose that women in STEM be highlighted in order to empower and encourage young girls to propel their employability and participation in the economy. Remember, grow what we eat what we grow. Thank you. A government with substance. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Romans. Member Peter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Nancy Pelosi once said, and I quote, "Women are leaders everywhere you look. From the CEO who runs a Fortune 500 company to the housewife who raises her children and heads her household. Our country was built by strong women, and we will continue to break down walls and defy stereotypes. The qualities and attributes that we powerful women hold can be passed down to generations and are beneficial to both the young and the old. We are confident. We have great leadership qualities. We serve with pride and confidence, and we are in touch with our emotional side, allowing us to handle situations with compassion." Madam Speaker, I rise today to give support to this motion. I also commend the government for looking at this issue, but I strongly believe that there is more that can be done to promote gender equality in our country than implementing a national action plan. When we look at equality, we're not just saying women should be given just a few rights, but be given full rights and placed on equal footing as our opposite gender. When developing the programs, the government needs to strengthen the educational sector to ensure that women and girls get full access to knowledge and training related to high-demand emerging fields, including digital innovation and informational technology. Madam Speaker, today, we have numerous strong women in Jamaica that are in different fields. Even with these women, Madam Speaker, we need more women to step up to the challenge and walk firmly into the limelight and fulfill their passions despite the challenges. Madam Speaker, you might ask yourself, when, where, how will it start? My answer is simply that it starts from within the schools in Jamaica. We need more women to rise to the occasion. Madam Speaker, it seems as if Minister only took out the good part from UN Women's article, but she failed to say that digitalization is rapidly transforming our societies. We need to be alert to how those changes can prejudice gender inequality instead of enhancing it. While digital technologies allowed for unprecedented advances to improve socio-economic and political outcomes for women and girls, they also give rise to profound new challenges that can perpetuate and deepen existing patterns of inequalities. UN Women 2023 recorded that since 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic has magnified the unequal pace of digital transformation. The gender-digital divide is becoming the new face of gender inequality, preventing millions of women from accessing education, jobs, and other indispensable services.
These gaps are rooted in the long-standing and persistent stereotypes, which also diminish women's participation and leadership in the innovation processes. Madam Speaker, based on the statistics and my experience as a teacher in training, I believe that more can be done in the school. We see electrical, welding, building construction, and auto mechanics, which are seen as male-dominated fields. Therefore, as the Member of Parliament for Northwestern Manchester, I implore the government to do more. We want more by developing programs for women and girls across Jamaica. We don't want no empty promises, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let us take the time Madam Speaker, let us take a look at these exceptional, driven, strong and dedicated women in this Parliament sitting who are paving the way for women. Hats off to you, and I give you your roses. Each time a woman stands for herself without knowing it possible, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Member Peter. Member Spence.
Women belong in all places. It shouldn't be that women are the exception. Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Tourism, these are my contributions that will improve women economic empowerment in Jamaica. The Tourism Board will work hands in hand with the Minister of Education to develop programs in the educational sector to strengthen women and girls' access to knowledge and training related to high demand and emerging fields that will prioritize gender equality and women's economic empowerment. With more incentives, having better training and on-the-job opportunities, and increasing the percentage of women in the tourism sector, the pathway to empowerment and that the opportunity for tourism to make a difference in this area will be maximized. Tourism contributes to gender equality and the economy of women empowerment in several ways. Employment possibilities. Tourism is the entry point into the labor market, especially for women, young people, migrant workers, and rural populations, with its close link to the other sectors such as transport, food, environment, and local handicrafts. More jobs in these areas can be created. Increasing women's participation in community life and decision-making. Studies reveal that women's participation in tourism enterprises not only contributes to decreasing individual and household poverty, but can also change the way decisions are made at work and in the community. Women who previously felt lacking in status and power gain increased standing and self-esteem within society through their economic empowerment and access to decision-making. Increasing access to resources. The tourism sector has a considerable potential for the development of entrepreneurial activity, especially because most tourism businesses are small and medium-sized enterprises. In addition, cooperation between sustainable rural tourism, arts and crafts, trades can be established, which can help to preserve cultural heritage and develop local economies. Madam Speaker, let's just be honest and let's just be real. Tourism has a pivotal role to play in achieving the objectives at heart for the 2030 vision of sustainable development. As such, this government calls for the implementation of policy measures aimed at promoting women's empowerment and at the same time contributing to the preservation of cultural heritage. Women lack knowledge and how to transform their skills into a profitable business. Supporting them in organizing their own small business would create an opportunity to generate income and give visibility to the cultural heritage of the country. Madam Speaker, due to women's concentration in lower status and lower paid jobs in tourism, their potential to contribute fully is currently untapped. This government calls for more investment in proper training so that they will get the adequate skills they need. Giving women the opportunity to participate fully in economic life is essential to building a strong economy, creating more stable and just societies, achieving international agreed goals for development, sustainability, and human rights, and improving the quality of life of women and consequently that of communities. For the tourism sector, the impact of greater gender equality and women's empowerment would be highly beneficial because diverse and gender equitable organizations perform better. Madam Speaker, the future of this country and the world at large belongs to the generation of equality. This government, through policies and initiatives, will prioritize gender equality.
Thank you, House Leader. Member Slew.
Madam Speaker, members of the government, and those who reside on the other side, a pleasant morning to you all. Now, I can stand here and I can go off like the opposition, who said, we're turning this country into a construction site. When the government implements plans to better infrastructure, we're not doing anything. But when we do, it's a construction site. One of the members of the opposition, you said that we are confused. You are confused. You're asking for policies, but one of your members are saying that they don't need policies. Who is confused? Madam Speaker, Jamaicans like to say that it is time to wake up and smell the coffee. But I think that most of us have already been awakened. As for me, I have been sniffing the coffee since I was in grade 8. When I was at the primary level, I never knew that women could be anything in the technology field. I never knew that women were capable of being engineers, lab techs, technical support specialists, and among other things. It is very sad to stand here and say that our Jamaican women and girls are cultured and socialized to believe that we can only be caregivers, teachers, nurses, and it may sound silly, but mothers. Madam Speaker, I believe over the years, society has evolved, and the school curriculums should reflect that evolution. Madam Speaker, I strongly believe that it is time for us to make information technology a compulsory and mandatory subject in all schools across Jamaica. The world is moving towards technology, but still, Jamaica is going backwards in all aspects, but I will zoom in on only the tech. Madam Speaker, a lot of Jamaicans will sit at home or over social media and they will murmur and criticize the government for what they're doing and for what they're not doing. But I urge you to not criticize and let us just take the time to use our better ideas and revolutionize. Madam Speaker, according to statistics, there's an estimate that women make up only 14% of the workforce in cloud computing, 20% in engineering, and a bit more in data intelligence, respectively. Madam Speaker, I end this point by saying, as the world is becoming more digital today more than ever, we need all facets of the economy and all branches of the government to work together to truly ensure that no one is left behind, especially our women and our young girls. Madam Speaker, I must also Jamaica is the first to acquire universal adult suffrage and give women the right to vote in Parliament. Many believe that this is a process which would result in a more progressive approach to democracy and government, as well as a strong foundation for gender equality. Yet, gender continues to be a sign of injustice and inequality against women in modern-day Jamaican society. Madam Speaker, as a young woman, it breaks my heart to question, is gender equality a human fight or is it a woman's fight? Madam Speaker, they say that strength knows no gender. But today, even the opposition, we are here today utilizing our strength as women to fight for issues that men in our society refuse to fight for, such as gender equality, equity, and inclusivity. Madam Speaker, if you ask me, that is strength, that is power. Madam Speaker, I would like to end on this note. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member Slew. Thank you, Member Slew. Member Bryan. Sabrina
Privilege, Madam Speaker.
By definition, it is not given. It is not earned, it is given. We hear often of being born into privilege by way of money, class, race, but not often of the privilege of sex, when we are well aware that women are not extended the many small courtesies that the world extends to men. Men have the privilege of inherently being viewed as leaders, skilled, authority, while women have to prove, beyond regularity I might add, possession of the same skills. But through efforts of change, we opt to level the playing field, which is why today, Madam Speaker, I must stand in support of the motion. My ministry is charged with drafting the blueprint to drive economic growth and sustainable development in Jamaica, a goal which cannot be achieved without equal inclusion and opportunities of the sexes. Women and girls must have access to education and training in high demand and emerging fields, those listed in the motion, yes, but a few others I must add stemming from my portfolio are infrastructure, works, and engineering. In Jamaica, where women are being dubbed Barbies, I'd like to point out that the original Barbie had several jobs. Doctor, lawyer, pop star, chef. Yeah, I think one time I even saw her in astronaut gear. She just switched her outfit up because women are that versatile. It is a shame, though, that in an article by the Jamaica Observer, Dr. Therese Chambers, a professional engineer and associate professor, was quoted stating that about 1 to 2 out of every 10 students enrolling in engineering programs are women. Madam Speaker, these classrooms don't have enough Barbies. So then, how do we combat this? Firstly, through implementing educational programs like the one suggested by the Minister of Transport and Mining, but evidently removing the idea of traditional male or female careers. Career fields are skilled and education specific, not sex specific. I believe this is the resocialization the opposition spoke of, but since as usual they make critique without solution, let me assist. For this, I propose sensitization from as early as the secondary level when early career planning takes place, addressing gender disparity and the potential for both sexes in these fields and others, as I do hope to see equal representation of men in fields considered fit for women. And no, we are not confused, opposition, wrong and strong as usual. We spoke of the programs for underachieving young men because gender equality involves both sexes, not just one. On that same point, propelling women's employability and full participation in the economy must be highlighted. When more women work, economies grow, as stated by the United Nations Women's Organization. But you see, it's not just about women's employability, it's where they are being employed. Admittedly, some small progress has been made over the years and women are being pushed to high-demanding fields like engineering. But what happens when they're pushed into these sectors, and how does it deter other women from embarking on this journey? Well, I was speaking to a bright young lady recently from my constituency, Southwestern St. Catherine, who is studying civil engineering at the University of the West Indies, Miss Danielle McGee. She's been doing construction work since 12 at the parish council. Her dad works there. Despite her pursuit of higher education and code of ethics already being in place to protect against sexual harassment and gender biases, she notes breaches of such by way of male construction workers with no regard for the parameters in place who go on to sexualize and undermine her compared to her male counterparts. Can you imagine she's been working and studying for this since 12 to go on a construction site and a man say, baby, I'm a dinner you come for make? And my baby man is just stepping out of the place. But when the men step into the room, it's wagwan my boss or the big man this, you know. But he has the same degree as the girl. Sir, come on now. And they were in the same classroom. Sir, come on now. You see, this is why it's not enough to push women into these emerging spaces. We have to protect and preserve their presence once they get there. On this, I am proposing adherence of stricter penalties for gender-related code of ethics to ensure women feel protected in these areas and know it is safe to pursue it. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this motion, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Brian. Member Scott?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. history reveals that women have always been neglected, both in history and have been less likely to have shared their experiences. That women dominate higher education today in terms of performance and enrollment in contemporary Jamaican society is noteworthy. As decades ago, the system favored men, and Hunter, 1978, in his groundbreaking study, found that between 1710 to 1834, the educational organizations were analogous and favored men. Black Chen Bailey, 2003, highlights how women dominate their higher education at all levels across the region. However, 2003 noted that there was almost a 2-to-1 ratio of females to male, with a total of 15,950 females and 7,978 males registered at the university at the West Indies in both its on and off campus. To the government, we are not trying to push out men. We are just saying our women need more recognition. So I ask you this question: how is the learning crisis still affecting our young women today? For girls and women, this crisis includes difficulty accessing quality learning, opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics subjects, traditionally ascribed to and dominated by boys and men, and lower levels of achievement in digital skills. Education systems have allowed gender divides to be perpetuated and to be disproportionately affect the most marginalized girls. While girls tend to outperform boys in reading skills in most regions, they continue to be underrepresented amongst top performers in subjects, and women continue to be underrepresented in the workforce. This is a tremendous waste of time and human potential. However, achieving in subject goes beyond digital access. It is about the skills that learning cultivates that are applicable throughout life. Thinking literally, problem solving, and innovating. In an age that is shaped by technological advances, having the know-how to operate, use, and create technology and science-based solutions with the critical to the advancement of young people and crucial for girls and women. This is the moment of change, the moment to advocate for gender equality in educational opportunities and to identify key areas of acceleration that could lead to gender equality in the education system and in the workforce. In conclusion, the world of work is changing in significant ways, marked by innovation, especially in digital and information and communication technologies, and the increasing informality and mobility of labor. Realizing women's economic empowerment in this context requires transformative structural change. It is extremely difficult for women as a group to break with tradition, to challenge customs, and to dispel the myths about their place in society. As Coco Chanel once said, a girl should be who she wants, not who society wants her to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Scott. Next, we have Member Campbell.
Madam Speaker, I stand in full support of the motion geared towards improving the lives of our women and girls.
All women need fair and effective institutions to access justice and social services. We cannot hope for
sustainable development if we do not address issues affecting our women and girls. In addressing issues of accessibility and availability, this government brings to the forefront the issue of identification. According to the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, an estimated 200,000 Jamaicans, including our women and girls, are without any form of legal identification. As a result of this, half of Jamaica's population that resides in rural areas face financial exclusion. With 1 in 5 Jamaicans without a bank account, half of the persons hindered from acquiring bank accounts because of no ID are rural residents. Madam Speaker, 3/4 of the women in southwestern St. Elizabeth, my constituency, are beneficiaries of the path, most being single heads of households. This therefore suggests that women are poorer than men. Madam Speaker, during the COVID-19 pandemic, I assure you can remember that the government made efforts to provide for financial assistance that targeted the unemployed and those in informal sectors. Unfortunately, persons from rural communities were disqualified by default due to a lack of identification that included both a TRN and a national identification that matched the TRN. Had more citizens been banked and a part of a common identification platform, the government's payouts could have been directly dispersed. Madam Speaker, identification is a critical factor for women empowerment. Without proper identification, all the plans that this government is putting forward will not be accessible for the same persons who need it the most. Jamaica has a very good framework for the digital transformation to occur. Target number 9 of Sustainable Development Goal 16 projects the provision of legal identity for all. Efforts to meet this goal is vital to achieving goal number 5, which is about gender equality. Through the implementation of a national identification system, women will be able to claim services to which they are entitled. The national identification system will enable the collection and storage of information to verify the identity of each Jamaican, starting at the age of 15. Additionally, to address my fellow member of the opposition, the identification system will include a biometric solution consisting of a computer database or fingerprint records, which will aid in criminal investigations to search and compare fingerprints from criminal scene in an effort to identify perpetrators. Madam Speaker, we can all attest that all women would benefit if rapists could be positively identified, apprehended, and put behind bars so that no woman could fall victim. I conclude by saying we cannot change what we are not aware of. But once we are aware, the government cannot help but change. I wish to reaffirm this House that this government is ready to effect changes in Jamaica, not only for our men, but also and more importantly, for our women.
Thank you, Member Campbell. Member Roden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There has been progress in our women driving growth in the Caribbean. But women continue to face challenges simply because of our gender. And since the onset of COVID-19, there has been a more visible setback in the equality between men and women in most, if not all, areas. Technology is evolving, but are our women evolving with technology? And we all know the answer to that, and that is the reason why we are gathered in this house today. Technology. The involvement of our women in digital transformation is not up to par with the progression of technology, and this is because there is still a gender gap. Our women and girls not being involved in digital transformation is a major problem in the schools and in the working world. It therefore means that we need to establish a foundation in our schools at all levels and of all types. Schools that cater for our women, men, young girls and boys, and people with disability, because they too have their space in digital transformation and will not be excluded. As for our schools, an article published by the Jamaica Observer, April 26, 2018, FLOW, one of the largest organizations in IT, urged female students and new graduates to actively pursue careers in information and communication technology industry. Fast forward to 2020, when COVID-19 began its course in Jamaica, it exposed the digital divide that existed and which still exists even now. As for policies, projects, programs and initiatives, information technology and our
reiterate, as our member had said, is already mandatory in our schools. Therefore, students can be encouraged to possibly pursue careers in the ICT field. Donation of more technological devices, which increases accessibility and affordability, and the Girls in ICT initiative, which should and must continue. As for our communities, one of the technological developments made in St. James was in the year 2013, where residents were to benefit from 2 new community access points. The CAPs were established as a means of providing computer access to our citizens. It was also a way of possibly stimulating entrepreneurship, as well as opening the lines of communication between citizens and government. While the access points may prove to be of good benefit, we must think further along the lines of having more access points in more communities in southern St. James, as well as the necessary technological resources for women and girls, specifically focusing on their affordability, accessibility, availability, and literacy in concordance with these resources. Therefore, projects that we are looking to carry out are as follows: installing Wi-Fi in more communities, more internet cafes, device donations. As the representative for a rural constituency, I will ensure that these programs, policies, and initiatives are not only mentioned, but made into a reality for women, men, young girls, and boys of St. James Southern. As for the blue economy, an article published by the UNCTAD on March 22, 2021, entitled "The Blue Economy as an Ocean of Opportunity to Advance Gender Equality," said it best: women's rights are human rights, and governments and business need to ensure their equal representation. Sustainable Development Goal 14, life below water, is essential for the blue economy, but also directly impacts the status of women by advancing SDG 5, and in fact, many other SDGs. Where women make up most of the workforce in coastal and maritime tourism and fisheries, which are the main blue economy sectors, and they contribute significantly also to the aquaculture sector. Yet they are overlooked and undervalued and in the lowest paid, lowest status, and least protected jobs. The disparity.
Time
Thank you,
expired,
Madam
Dr.
Speaker.
Rodin. Next, Member Morgan.
Madam Speaker, members of this Honorable House, and all distinguished guests, I stand before you as a representative for the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. I emphatically agree with the motion. In fact, it very closely aligns with the theme for this year's International Women's Day, the theme being Digital, Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. In an increasingly digitized world, women, girls, and other marginalized groups are often barred from becoming involved in the tech world due to a lack of access or digital illiteracy. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare the digital realities of many Jamaicans, the portion of our students unable to access their virtual classrooms, a major setback from which we are still reeling. Whether we wish it to be or not, the digital age is here to stay, and we must take appropriate measures to ensure we usher everyone into this age with us, with particular attention paid to women and girls within our nation. Madam Speaker, according to the UN Women's Gender Snapshot 2022 report, the lack of digital exposure of women to the digital realm has cut $1 trillion from the gross domestic product of low and middle income countries in the last 10 years, a number Jamaica has certainly contributed to. Thus, it is my firm belief that we must encourage more women and girls to pursue careers in STEM. In countries where digital gender gaps are lower, the gender gap in vulnerable employment, youth and unemployment, and labor force participation are lower as well. Providing our Jamaican women and girls with opportunity to seek out and engage in the creation and innovation of technological advances can aid in narrowing the gender divide regarding economic and social inequalities. While mobile phone usage is almost level for both men and men and women in this country, the disparity between general internet usage between rural and urban areas is stark. Jamaica currently has an internet penetration rate of 68.2%, meaning that only that portion of our general population has internet access. But we are working to combat this, Madam Speaker, with the National Broadband Initiative that seeks to provide internet access island-wide by 2026, which is highly commendable. In a report published by the Inter-American Development Bank, some experts have argued that digital gender divides close with the overall ICT penetration and with greater technology diffusion between men and women. However, others have argued that this interpretation, by showing that the gender divide is only mildly improving as the overall infrastructure for digital technologies improves. This is to say, Madam Speaker, it is not enough to increase our general infrastructure alone, according to the literature. The very same inequalities in income, employment opportunities, etc., will run rampant in digital spaces as well. Thus, we must ensure that we do our best to dispel the hold archaic, patriarchal ways of thinking have on our society. And while we create spaces for our women and girls to share and innovate together, we must ensure that these spaces are safe. 85% of women globally have experienced or witnessed digital violence against other women. Just as we strive to ensure our real-life spaces are safe, we must ensure the same for the virtual realm as well. So then, Madam Speaker, what must we do to ensure that our Jamaican women and girls are able to grow to reach their full potential in the digital world? We're already on our way. The Ministry of Education and Youth announced its intention to build 6 STEM high schools in Jamaica, where our youth will get a taste for the STEM field. Additionally, the continuation of our mentorship programs and events, such as hackathons and coding sessions that we have hosted in the past to commemorate International Day of Women and Girls in Science, as well as International Girls in ICT Day, is vital. We must also ensure this continuity throughout the year and not just on special days. Paying particular attention to rural women and girls by establishing programs and providing grants that incentivize their involvement as well.
Thank you, Member Morgan. Member Wedderburn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the National Action Plan for Digital Transformation should encompass all Jamaicans and expand the employment prospects in the technology sector. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica reported a 1.9% decrease in the unemployment rate in July 2022 when compared with the previous year. In contrast, the unemployment rate in April 2022 was 6%, while the 6.6% recorded in July 2022 showed a slight increase in the unemployment rate. This statistic is significant because attempts to enhance digital transformation can be carefully planned to address fluctuations in the unemployment rate. The COVID-19 outbreak, which forced many businesses to migrate their transactions online, emphasized and highlighted the value of digitalization for the Jamaican population. Financial institutions like banks have improved their online banking, enabling customers to purchase products and have them delivered right to their doorsteps. In Jamaica, the pandemic has sparked a digital revolution that could help revitalize the country's economy. There is potential for the digitalization of important economies, as stated by Tamik Hines, a senior manager and software engineer at MCE Systems Limited, a multinational Jamaican technology-related company, in an article published on June 25, 2020, entitled, "COVID-19 is an opportunity to digitize key economies." She went even further by stating that COVID-19 forced this digitalization process to take place even faster. But what about those individuals who are not technologically literate, or those who do not have access to electronic devices or internet access as individuals in rural Jamaica? What about the elderly? Yes, the younger generation gravitates towards technology more, but most individuals in the older generation usually have a hard time grasping the technology used currently. Madam Speaker, how many times have your mother or grandmother asked you to look or fix something on their phones? You show them how to fix that issue, and then 2 days later they're asking you to fix the same issue you already showed them how to do. We simply cannot leave the older generation behind as we move into an era of digital transformation. The most significant information from a gender perspective is that Jamaica has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancies in the Caribbean. It was emphasized in a 2020 article entitled "Jamaica, High Adolescent Pregnancy Rates Gets the Government Attention," that Jamaica has the 3rd highest adolescent pregnancy rate in the Latin America and Caribbean region. Usually this means that these ladies would have to sacrifice their education as they would need to take care of themselves and their children. Furthermore, it is imperative to note that single-parent households are very prominent in this nation. This should accentuate the value of giving single mothers access to digital jobs, especially work-from-home opportunities, as well as giving them a way to stand on their own 2 feet, all while simultaneously helping them support their families. Successful changes cannot be seen without effective strategies and plans being implemented. By collaborating with the different members of Parliament, centers that cater to teach single mothers in becoming more computer or technologically literate can be developed. Additionally, centers to teach the older generation in a simplified way how to use technological devices, or even to go as far as to teach them how to conduct their business online, can also be developed. Working with culture, health, arts, sports and education, Chase, the Minister of Education and Youth, the Minister of Finance and Public Service, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade will prove to be vital in attaining the necessary equipment and funds needed for this initiative. Not only will these centers be beneficial to our single mothers, the elderly, and to residents in rural areas of the country, but to all Jamaican citizens. These centers will allow citizens to learn different skills in the technological field, while also becoming a beacon of hope.
Thank you, Member Wedderburn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member Henry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's great to see all my fellow women here today making history. I want to thank you especially, my fellow opposition. You have raised some valued points, especially you, Ms. Weatherburn. Sometimes silence is our worst enemy. So today I speak out for gender equality. You know, sometimes we talk about gender equality. I feel it's mainly a woman's fight, because some men may see us as just complaining. But we understand what we feel and what we want. I especially support advancing digital transformation. According to Statista, as of January 2023, there were 5.16 billion internet users worldwide, which is 64.4% of the global population. Wake up, my fellow parliamentarians, the world is going digital. The internet can be both a good and a bad place. So we have to ensure that in our plans, we have social media awareness. In the past couple of weeks, we have had some riffraff in the internet, some terrible things. We have a popular internet user, a TikToker, a YouTuber, who was allegedly arrested for rape. While reading the comment on the Star's Instagram page, I saw a woman in the comment section saying it's not rape, it's abuse, as she's above the age of consent. Can you believe this idiocy? I do believe that it's the lack of knowledge in women's rights and laws, and the lack of understanding the difference between rape and abuse that causes this. So, I would like to call for my member of parliament, my fellow education minister, to implement a class, just a class in our schools, so that we can have a women's rights class and a women's law class, so that we can have our men and women both educated from a young age of what the law is, what's right and what's wrong legally, so they know that certain things you cannot, so that you know that certain things you cannot do. Addressing Member Weatherburn, as a member of parliament for North East St. Andrew, I know what it is like to not have the internet reaching where you want. We do have Wi-Fi in the major towns right now, free Wi-Fi, but we don't have it in the communities. I am advocating for free Wi-Fi in schools, in the communities and community center. I do want Wi-Fi to reach everyone, and not only Wi-Fi. I'm advocating for a lab, computer laboratory, or even a tablet laboratory if we don't have the budget to spend that far, so that who do not have device can access the internet for educational purposes only. In a recent post made by a fellow woman in politics, she stated that Jamaica is ranked the second in the world for killing women, and that's an absolute fact. As Minister of Justice, I think we need a special victims unit to tackle the minds of those who abuse women. We need to know what's going on in their mind. We need to know so we can identify the signs before it happens. My fellow women, I'm also calling for steeper penalties. Look at the case that happened in the traditional college recently. The male kidnapped the girl, held her hostage, and tortured her. I think we need steeper penalties, not just a slap on the wrist.
he needs to be put away for life because he had no intention of letting her go. The internet can be a bad
Thank you,
place.
Member Morgan. Sorry, Henry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Member Cummings. All right, let's start. Not affecting your time.
Madam Speaker, if farmers are like the backbone of the economy, then why aren't we effectively investing in them? I rise today in support of the motion and also in support of the most vulnerable group within the agricultural sector. Our hard-working farmers of this country, rightfully described as the backbone of Jamaica. There are critical areas that demand our attention: the marketing of produce and the perennial problem of predial larceny. Let us create a sustainable and profitable industry by investing more security and resources in farming, because after all, farming is a big business. Firstly, the Ministry of Agriculture will create a statutory body that focuses primarily on a central marketing system which will track produce from seed to harvest and control the flow of goods while leveling the playing field for small-scale versus large-scale farmers. There will also be a reduction in wastage yearly. With this new arm of government using established digital platforms like the Agri-Linkage program, farmers will be able to update what they plant, their minimum expected yield, weather updates, and water accessibility on their farms. On this digital platform, customers such as hoteliers, vendors, and other consumers of agricultural produce will be able to order weeks or months prior before harvest. This will indeed provide a steady market for all our farmers, and it will prevent an oversupply and waste of produce. In regards to the tracking of produce, after harvest, all produce will be sent to one location with proper cold storage where it is washed, sorted, processed, and graded, then sold to consumers who pre-purchase or want to purchase and place orders through the website. We will have significant data on production in Jamaica and will be able to recommend what to plant. With strategic planning, we will be able to expand into the export market. I see brand Jamaica, made in Jamaica, in all corners of the world. This body will help reduce the impact of predial larceny because the distribution centers will only accept produce from registered farmers who are actively updating the system on what is planted and what was lost during production. Rather, extension officers will be able to provide recommendations on what to plant and when to plant because all updates are done at the farmer's fingertips and verified by extension officers. My second area of focus is predial larceny because as a rural female farmers, we are usually considered the easiest target to the perpetrators. And I am proposing the Predial Larceny Act must be strengthened and expanded to assist farmers to recover after their loss. Imagine a farmer losing more than $200,000 worth of farm inputs, and the perpetrator is should only pay a $40,000. Are you about to tap? I'm sorry. And the thief will only be charged a $40,000 fine. And mind you, that fine goes to the state and not the farmer. Remember.
Thank you, Member Cummings. Thank you. Time expired.
On behalf of the farmers, can I ask
Member Shields, you can go.
Empowerment is the expansion of your ability to make your own choices by accessing necessary resources and achieving your desired outcome. These words were said by Justice Carol Edwards, who is the president of the Jamaican Association of Women Judges, and is the way we need to look at economic empowerment for the people of Jamaica. Capri shared in 2022 that tasks like caring for children, the elderly, and sick relatives, as well as household chores, are largely undertaken by women without monetary compensation nor national economic value ascribed. Consequently, the economic value of these activities is not reflected in the country's budgets, or are they considered a part of national growth. The motion presented by the government placed a lot of focus on women being the majority of care workers. However, serious work needs to be done around changing this culture rather than putting forward policies and programs that are women-specific. It is true that for centuries, women have been at the forefront of care work, whether in the professional paid realm or the unpaid realm at home. The government needs to get serious about mass campaigns geared towards behavior and attitude changes for us to get anywhere in achieving gender equality in our homes. Madam Speaker, the idea that women belong in the home while their male counterparts belong in the workforce drives domestic violence levels up and creates a society that leaves women dependent on men for survival. Simply providing a space in the labor force for women to do more care work will do nothing to solve these issues. The Minister of Gender described care work at home as an opportunity cost to participating in the labor force. While it is commendable to present our citizens with opportunities for integration into the labor market, care workers contribute to our economy as is. We on the opposition bench can appreciate care work outside of the labor market. Care work deserves compensation, not because of the possible impacts it can have on employment statistics, but because it contributes significantly to national growth. A mother who stays home taking care of young children and an elderly relative is helping to build our nation. It is important because it is work that aids our economy and significantly contributes to the lives of our entire population. With this in mind, the opposition recommends the establishment of the house workers' stipend. This stipend would be provided on a monthly basis and would allow house workers access to savings, money to purchase personal items, or whatever other purpose they find fit. Funding from this can be done through the International Labour Organization, which has assisted many countries with similar programs to enhance their care economies. Madam Speaker, women are not the only marginalized group in Jamaica. As young women, we acknowledge that we are a significantly marginalized group here and that it is in our best interest to also look out for our marginalized counterparts. The government's motion does not take into consideration LGBTQIA people who also disproportionately do care work as a result of discrimination while seeking jobs. As the member representing the concerns of St. E. St. Thomas, I have seen where my constituents are especially impacted by care work not significantly being recognized. This is because the opportunities that might exist in a Kingston and St. Andrew, even a St. Catherine, or even in tourist hotspots do not exist in rural Jamaica. The opposition stands by ensuring that these marginalized people are also able to benefit from the proposed house workers' stipend as well. We must delve deeper into the empowerment side of economic empowerment.
Going forward, when I hold this in my hand, it means you have 30 seconds left. Thank you. Member Vassal, you may take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise with pride in supporting this motion brought across by my colleague. I can recall growing up, out of curiosity, I would ask my mother, "Mommy, why do women stay in abusive relationships where their lives and sometimes children are at risk?"
And my mother would simply reply, the lack of financial freedom. We are here today as an all-women parliament, and now is the time we advocate for our women. Lisa had a column in the Jamaica Observer from a few days ago. Is it slowly becoming normal in our society? And we have become comfortable with it? And at what point do we say enough is truly enough and demand better from our men and by extension our leaders? According to research in an article written and published by the Jamaica Gleaner on July 20, 2022, the Ministry of National Security reported a rise of almost 100% of the annual reported domestic violence cases. So then, as a government, we must go back to the drawing board and review to see where we have fallen short. Who helps our women? Estimates published by WHO indicate that globally about 1 in 3, that's 30% of our women worldwide, have been subjected to either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner violence in their lifetime. To quote the aforementioned article, prior to this, the results of the first national survey on gender-based violence in Jamaica show a high prevalence rate of 27.8%, with more than 1 in every 4 women in Jamaica experiencing intimate partner violence in their lifetime. As a woman in Jamaica, this makes me wonder, could the next victim be me? Could it be one of my friends or my relatives or one of these women in this room? Economic growth for women will contribute greatly to the growth of the Jamaican economy. According to the International Monetary Fund, improving education opportunities for girls is an important step in the longer term. Reducing the gender gap gives women more economic freedom and less ability to be influenced and controlled by men. Women who are financially able to manage on their own will pry themselves away from relationships where they might be abused. Because if me have my money, which man can give me child? In school, girls are known to be overachievers, and while this might be true, there's an appalling number of our girls who have not been granted the chance of going to school, especially during the recent COVID-19 pandemic. Many more students have left the school system with no plans to return. According to UNICEF, pregnancy and financial problems are the main reasons why children from the poorest households stop attending school. So how do we fix this, Madam Speaker? Here are a few things to think on. Our education sector and our care sector. Jamaica's socio-economic conditions make it difficult for our children and our senior citizens, as well as our untapped potential persons. Everyone needs a seat at the table. If we have an aging population, why does only 20% of our Jamaican population have a pension plan in place? And because of this,
thank you, Member Vassell. Member Mills, you may take the floor.
Madam Speaker, I appreciate every listening ear, but needless to say that I strongly support a national action plan geared towards the economical empowerment and societal development for our women in our care sector to really make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and to do business. A 2021 JIS article reported a statement by Dr. the Honorable Christopher Tufton that in 2020, when compared to 2019, there was an 18% increase in healthcare workers, with over 15,000 doctors, nurses, and admin staff. This sector, ever so resilient, especially in the unknown midst of COVID-19, cared for us. With this in mind, we, the government, made this national economic plan to better the conditions for our care workers. Whilst the government has been working assiduously As State Minister for Health and Wellness, I am not removed that our care sector workers faces issues such as ill treatment of our women caretakers, unpaid and underpaid care workers, and Madam Speaker, Stevie Wonder wouldn't need gender lens to see the disparities women in our care sector face for decent employment or even preferment. I beg your opposition, give the Dali Deba a chance. The vast majority of frontline healthcare workers were women. Can you just imagine working in the pandemic, unreasonable and long shifts whilst pressing through your menstrual cramps? Madam Speaker, in revising our legislation, this government is implementing menstrual leave for our care sector women, which can even be extended to all women in Jamaica. This will create a working environment that strengthens the support we give to our women for their physical and emotional well-being. With this sustainable action, I can already see the decrease of migrating healthcare workers. Secondly, our informal care sector workers have not been able to easily access the greener pastures of being employed. Our labour standards, rewards for prime example, residents from my West Rural St. Andrew constituency with a minimum wage salary just above $30,000. Imagine a domestic worker in the supermarket shopping for the necessities of life. I bet when the cashier tells her the total, all she can say is the pressure is getting worse. Madam Speaker, as much as we're trying, the housekeeper, the babysitter, and the living can't make ends meet with a minimum wage. What they need is a livable wage. Our domestic workers are underpaid and need access to benefits such as pensions and insurance. This government seeks to regulate more agencies and unions to protect and advocate for our domestic workers. Unpaid care activities limits women's access to the labour market, regulating them to low-income employment. This government is implementing incentives such as opportunities for remote working. Madam Speaker, rally back in your chair. I have given you the case with the solutions. We need now to act in order to be on track with our gender sector and care economic goals for Vision 2030. I thank you.
Thank you, Member Mills. Member Morrison.
Applause without action is no longer an acceptable recognition. Madam Speaker, I do acknowledge the government's efforts to implement this national action plan. But as my mother would say, if you are going to do something, do it good and done. The usual statements released by the government whenever there's a cry for reform or improvement in the healthcare sector is, we don't have enough nurses because they're migrating. However, our healthcare system has been subpar for years. Madam Speaker, when one values a person's work, they tend to be compensated handsomely. For example, our Prime Minister, who makes approximately $7.2 million per year. We constantly see within the media where our nurses are going on strikes because of pay issues, and the government continues to say they have no money in the budget. Yet, our Minister of Finance and Private Service can spend over $1 billion Jamaican dollars on pretty money with no value. Madam Speaker, I suppose it is due to the lack of clinical psychiatrists within our healthcare system why the government keeps trying to implement madness to solve the issues of pay gaps between male and female-dominated fields. We all know the government is trying to paint migrating nurses as villains, but the fact of the matter is, graduating nurses are migrating to first world countries to get better salaries to help them pay off their crippling student loan debt, which is due to the government's poor efforts to make higher education more affordable for our young people. Madam Speaker, nurses and other essential healthcare workers don't actually want to leave our beautiful island that they call home, but the lack of financial stability, the unconcerned nature of the government, extreme burnout due to patient-to-nurse ratio, and the high cost of living is forcing nurses to go to a country that appreciates them more. The policy that the government wants to implement is like putting a band-aid over a gushing wound. True appreciation for nurses should be shown in the form of fair compensation. We must invest in the healthcare. We must truly invest in transformative gender equity and rights policies. Addressing gender perceptions and barriers in nursing is also important in order to empower nurses to obtain proper working conditions, equal treatment, and become leaders in healthcare. By providing more equitable pay to our predominantly female workforce, providing adequate funding to all hospitals and clinical staff, and creating gender-sensitive leadership and development opportunities for women in nursing workforce, we can slowly ease away the inequities in healthcare. Madam Speaker, the time for change is now. The government needs to understand the value of educating and maintaining a professional nursing workforce. Every penny invested in nursing raises the well-being of people and families in tangible ways that are clear for everyone to see. But then again, it is no surprise that a male-dominated field such as government has a problem recognizing and valuing a female-dominated field such as nursing. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Morrison. Member Robe, my apologies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand here today in agreement with the motion. If not now, when? When are we planning to get to the point of being supportive of equal and decent, equitable employment in our care sector? Enacting legislation initiatives and public programs on the care sector economy guarantees decent employment for all workers according to national and international labor standards. Is a key component being explored by our government here today. Time after time, labor standards have been built up and broken down, and subpar standards are used that only touch surface issues, and outdated standards are recognized, leaving willing participants, young men and women, from both rural and urban areas to run for the hills. This is due to lack of cooperation from members here today. I applaud the exception of the process of amending legislation such as Minimum Wage Act to provide additional protection to domestic workers. But my opposition, when do you propose that we help the persons in need now? Coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, new initiatives and legislations that are guiding care workers' employment and labor standards must be developed. Subsidies are necessary. Subsidizing health care, for example. Around the world, women spend 2 to 10 more times on unpaid work than men. So imagine me, a woman with care sector working days, but cannot afford a daycare because of ongoing price increase. Gender inequality in unpaid care work is the missing link in the analysis of gender gaps in labor outcomes, such as labor participation rates, wages, and job quality. Our care sectors are earning just enough to get by. Decent employment, benefits that suit our people, and sufficient wages to all care workers must be a necessity. We implore as a government to call upon organizations like Staten to give us a report on untapped care worker market and to report the brain drain the economy labor force suffers from. There is no great legislation, no great initiative, and no great plan, and we wonder why our care sector participants migrate. Madam Speaker, pardon me, but this is absurd. Madam Speaker, I say let us create a legislation that is adapted to our mutated economy and doesn't care for only traditional care workers, but unpaid care workers, taking them from the bottom of the food chain and into the running league, which will then spark the sector. the Jamaican economy declined by 18.4%, and there was a 10.8% decline in the number of persons employed as of July 2020 compared to July 2019. That goes to show something is missing. I call for greater investment in the sector of wage subsidies to be activated outgoing to our care workers and unpaid care workers. We must meet our workers halfway. They do so much for us. Let us in turn take care of them.
Thank you, Member Rowe. Member Kayla Bryan.
Madam Speaker, my fellow honorable members of the House, guests, viewers, good morning. I rise today to give my support to the motion being put forward. Women's economic empowerment is a key catalyst in accelerating the achievement of all sustainable goals by ensuring the inclusion of women's skills, experiences, and talents. The Vision 2030 statement is Jamaica, the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. But, Madam Speaker, how can women live comfortably in a society where simply just being at the table is considered equality? The emerging fields within the evolving technological world have been dominated by men. Society has successfully drilled into our minds that a particular profession has a gender. This has shaped women's and young girls' perception of their own identity, thus discouraging them from becoming involved in those fields. This has affected the advancements in women's economic empowerment because societal pressure leads girls to choose careers in which they are undervalued, underpaid, and unprotected. A 2018 study on low labor productivity by the Caribbean Policy Research Institute found that women are concentrated in low-wage sectors such as health and social work and in private households. Madam Speaker, it is time for our attitude to change from daughter, you can only do this, to daughter, dream big because you can do it all. Females' upward social mobility is more closely tied to educational attainment than that of males. Since male identity is in large part tied to the ability to be a provider, there's a stronger demand on males for earning an income which does not necessarily require formal education. According to the most recent Global Gender Gap Report, 34% of women were enrolled in a higher education program compared with only 20% of men. However, Madam Speaker, as of July 2022, the unemployment rate for women is 8.2, while it is 5.2 for men. We think to ourselves, is this the reality because men have greater access to sources of income than women? This government intends to develop and fulfill a national action plan to put more women on a path of economic independence. Firstly, there needs to be more inclusive curricula with gender training modules in schools. This is useful in sensitizing students to gender issues from a young age, allowing them to better express themselves and exude confidence in whatever they embark on. This is imperative in sensitizing parents and educators as well to increase their awareness of gender dynamics and to combat gender stereotypes. In addition, the Ministry of Education and Youth plans to collaborate with the Ministry of Gender, Culture, Entertainment and Sport to have regular female empowerment and training sessions in communities and schools geared towards advancing women in fields such as entrepreneurship and STEM. These sessions will focus on equipping women with the knowledge and skills required for these fields, since the sad reality is that this well-needed information is concealed in an effort to prevent us from being indulged in masculine or not girly enough activities. Moreover, thank you.
Member Bryan. Thank you. Member Thorpe.
It is Dr. Terry Carell Reid who said it best. Worry less about the competition, focus more on differentiation. As Opposition Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, I stand resolute before you to bring you a differentiated support on the motion to enact legislative initiatives and public programs to guarantee decent employment, and might I add, decent wages. Hence, I will present data on the disparity in wages in healthcare workers, as well as a lack of socioeconomic opportunities for our homeless, whilst also providing plausible and practical solutions. Madam Speaker, also allow me the opportunity to thank the government for simply repeating the opposition's points. Firstly, women are almost 70% of the global health and social workforce, but it is estimated they hold only 25% of senior roles. This is according to the World Health Organization in 2021. According to the same organization in 2022, a report suggests that once age, education, and other occupational categories are considered, globally, women face a 24 percentage point pay gap compared to men across the healthcare sector, which means, in a Jamaican context, a woman's income was assessed to be 19% less than that of a man's. So, however, we need to focus more on the diversification of the roles men work in healthcare, which should, of course, include medical social workers, nutritionists, speech therapists, and registered nurses. And more women need to be at the top in roles such as executive directors, biostatisticians, and program development officers, pioneering the way for pay transparency and legal instruments for policies against pay discrimination. Therefore, breaking the stigma that only women belong in healthcare. According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of which Jamaica has been a signatory since 1948, it is within my portfolio as the Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade to highlight that this document states that women should have equal, free, active, meaningful, and informed participation in decision-making processes and equal rights of men and women to promote social progress and better standards of life in greater freedom. Therefore, we must prioritize fixing the gender wage gap to better increase our equitable standards and human rights cooperation. Secondly, the government of Jamaica identifies the homeless as one of the most vulnerable groups and has pursued several initiatives to offer support. I commend you. According to a JFLAG 2014 report, there are at least 1,160 persons who are homeless island-wide. The majority, a total of 616 persons, reside in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew. The government's efforts to construct shelters, transitional facilities, and food programs are insufficient to radically transform the situation. As a society, we must acknowledge that we must act more on our social obligation and civic duty to care for one another, or we're one out of many people. Hence, the National Action Plan must make provisions to provide more assistance to our displaced individuals as well as opportunities to gain employment and access affordable housing. Now that I have made my case, I am sure you are now able to understand the gravity of the situation. Melinda Gates once said, "Investing in women means investing in the people who invest in everyone else." Madam Speaker, members of the government, members of the beautiful opposition, guests, good morning.
Thank you, Member Thorpe. Member Christie.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support the motion to endorse women's empowerment and to eliminate gender inequality in our society through training and education. However, when it comes to thinking about women in positions of authority, we are all too frequently blinded by the mental swords infected with poisonous mind bugs that traps us in the prejudice of the past. Education, which serves as the basis on which everything else is built, may serve as both an elevator and a springboard. It enables people to lift themselves up and bridge the gap that keep them apart. If we consider life to be a long race, education gives training, sustenance, and support. As the old saying goes, if you educate a boy, you train a man. But if you educate a girl, you train a village. The Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan commits the country to redressing long-standing systematic discrimination against women, identifying and removing barriers to women's and men's empowerment,
ultimately developing a society that cherishes gender balance, equality, and equity. Madam Speaker, allowing women to grow and reach their full potential in the workplace has proven to be more difficult than anticipated. Women account for half of the world's population, yet they account significantly less than half of the total economic activity. When women do engage, they are often confined to low-paying, low-status positions. Women earn barely 3/4 as much as male globally, even with the same level of education and career. Isn't equal pay for equal effort one of the most fundamental principles of justice? Women are overrepresented in the informal and care sector of the economy, where they are unprotected, perform unskilled labor, and earn uncertain wages. Too frequently, they bear the burden of unpaid, unrecognized, unreported, and underappreciated work. Even today, Madam Speaker, economic talks have been around climbing the corporate ladder and smashing the glass ceiling. But we need to stop ignoring the very care work that prevents women from being upfront and involved in society so that they may benefit from the opportunities we often told of exist for us. Sadly, we're only looking at a half-gender revolution while we're not letting men's contribution go unnoticed. We still have to knock on the inequalities that are considered major in closing the gender gap. We need to encourage males to participate in the sector, and we need to re-socialize men to remove the responsibility of care work from just women. We have clearly made significant progress towards gender equality, but even though our foot is through the door, we are still standing outside in the cold. It is now time to keep the promise, to create a world in which every little girl from every corner of every continent can reach her full potential without hindrance and discrimination. My message, therefore, is straightforward. Women's economic involvement requires a 21st century mindset. We will remove the flotsam of rooted gender discrimination. We will take the risk, leave our warm comfort zone and allow hope to triumph over fear and courage to triumph over timidity. Finally, wedging open the door to women's contribution, their learning, their labor, and their leadership.
Member Blake.
Madam Speaker, I am pleased to make a contribution on this historic occasion on the move that seeks to address and lessen the rate of underachievement of boys in external exams by at least 25% in the next 5 years. What are little boys made of? What are little boys made of? Frogs and snails and puppy dog tails. That's what little boys are made of.
What are little girls made of? What are little girls made of? Sugar and spice and everything nice. That's what little girls are made of. Madam Speaker, our very nursery rhymes condition our minds to see boys and girls differently. And we are challenged to tear down these ideologies that cause us to see women in a certain way and men in another. We are challenged to eradicate social conditioning that make us accept gender roles. Today in particular, I stand to tear down the boxes in which we put people. I stand to erase the line of gender politics that divides us and put to this honorable house that boys can achieve the same learning outcomes as girls. We do not want to leave our men and boys behind because we do not want to become as ugly and backward as the institutions that denied our intellect and our potential.
Academically, girls consistently outperform boys at school. But does this mean that they're smarter? Girls tend to do better on exams because
in July 2022 shows that boys are more likely than girls to repeat primary grades in 130 countries and more likely not to have an upper secondary education in 73 countries. Having identified the negative which we wish to change, we will discuss how we will build and implement programs to change these negatives and create an atmosphere in which our boys may thrive and develop into a new sort of masculinity. On August 28, 2022, a back-to-school retreat was held in my constituency, Southeastern St. Catherine, where councillors partnered with different stakeholders to encourage boys and girls, but mostly boys, on the importance of an education, and also to aid with costs and school supplies for the upcoming academic year. I am looking forward to a society where there is equity and equality, and therefore, in quoting from MP Carencia Morrison, empowerment of women and girls does not mean marginalization of men and boys. On the contrary, it promotes greater levels of mutual respect, equity, and where the entire human race on earth will their best potential. She went further to say that boys and girls may learn differently, and therefore we should put strategies in place to ensure that boys achieve their best learning outcomes. Madam Speaker, if placed in the right environment, if given the proper tools, if given the proper psychological support system, our boys can perform and have proven to do so. I want to remind us that socialization and academic success of our boys are intrinsically linked to our collective future. In thus hope that over the next 5 years as a community, we can work to make this issue a top priority on the national educational agenda and maintain it there until it is fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Blake. Member Anishka Crossdale.
It is a beautiful day indeed to be alive. Madam Speaker, my parliamentary colleagues, good morning. I am proud to be a part of this government, a government that sees the need for change and acts on it. This government has yet another time taken a step in the right direction. Henry Ford, a knowledgeable man known to us, once said, and I quote, "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, but working together is indeed success." I stand in full support of the motion put forward by this government, and specifically the proposal of developing a national mentorship program. There is a need for change and focused attention on issues affecting and relating to gender equality. As a country, we must aim to meet the different needs of young men and women in our education sector. I nobly represent the people of Central Kingston that yearns for prosperity and change. The time has come. The time is now for new development and change. I think about the young men on corners in my constituency who one may say has missed the mark. But can good come out of Nazarene? With a mentorship program and continued collaboration with institutions such as the Heart Trust NSTA, lives can be impacted, and we will not only see an increased achievement in young men, but also positive behavioral change. We can seek to eradicate issues like gang violence and unemployment through social intervention programs that will not only be life-changing, but it will give our young men a sense of purpose. According to a study done by UNESCO in 1999, the findings of that time show that there is a statistically gender difference in the value that boys and girls place on education compared with wealth. The study highlighted that students think it's more important for boys than girls to continue their education. Yet over 20 years after this same study was done, we are still seeing an underachievement of our boys in school. However, I must commend the Social Development Fund for the work they do across Jamaica where social reform is concerned, through institutions such as the Community Development Commission. I view the CDC as an important partner for this mentorship program that we seek to establish, which could engage young men living in the constituency who have graduated high school, matriculated, and are well on their way to success, to mentor 3 high school students, grades 9 through to 13, to help to positively change the course of their lives. It must also be noted that the Jamaica Teaching Council in 2014 launched the Advancing the Education of Boys programs in schools. The program was launched and directed at raising the achievement of boys so that they can become productive citizens. Let us assess the effectiveness of this program and establish ways to strengthen it through the Mentors Association of Jamaica. Let us make the right step to equip our young men to take on life ahead. In closing, I asked earlier, can good come out of Nazarene? I say yes. Yes, because we have a government that listens, a government that acts, and a government that cares. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Crossdale. Member Bennett.
Madam Speaker, underachievement in boys start from an early age, as early as basic school. Rude labels such as boys are too adventurous, too explorative, and boys are slower than girls is the first step in us as people demotivating them, and consequently creates a dominoes effect. As we see that percentage passes for our boys in grade 4 literacy and numeracy exam and GSAT, who is now superseded by the PEP, are low. This trend in underperformance resulted in our boys being deemed slow starters, as they are later seen to be stepping up to the plate to even surpassing females in CSEC and CAPE exams. In 2019 alone, males recorded higher percentage CSEC passes in agricultural science, double award, biology, chemistry, and music. While we don't want to break their performance streak, this is where there is more than enough room for improvement. As such, a national mentorship program in selected underdeveloped and vulnerable communities should be established. This program will be in form of a series of workshops where popular influential personalities will be invited in to mentor and motivate our boys. This will aid in our boys in realizing that they can achieve what they want. Their dream now becomes more tangible and more within their reach. This would also serve as a reculturing of the boys into understanding their role as men and to know and understand that life comes with failure and success. There is also a call for the re-evaluation of the 2021 education reform as it relates to the modernization of mode of teaching in STEM subject to a more hands-on style of learning. We see where our boys are excelling in practical subjects as there is a need to take the math and physics outside of the classroom and integrate it in concepts and topics from a different subject. And as such, we'll be partnering with Digital Foundation in launching phase 4 of our mobile science. This is where we'll be seeing 30 high school and 10 primary school being provided with mobile labs. This partnership is to focus on creating more opportunities for practical teaching and to expose students on the magic of science. We would also like to see for subjects such as AutoCAD, construction and mechanical drawing, BMed, and green engineering to be taught in more schools, not only just technical high schools. We want to see more of our boys and our girls to take these unconventional careers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member Bennett. Member Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Gender inequality and women's empowerment are issues that are plaguing our society. And I must acknowledge the government for trying to act on this. But we have other vital areas that crave our attention. Government, you must walk before you can run. The government's illogical arguments and Disneyland business talking about dollies and Barbies shows that they are playing ticks for tats with crucial issues. Madam Speaker, we don't need gimmicks. What we need is to take actions towards solutions. We all know COVID-19 has devastated the country and the world at large. And while everyone has suffered through COVID-19, the pandemic forced women into a deep social, economic, and physical insecurity than men. Let's look at domestic violence before and after the pandemic. According to the International Journal of Collaborative Research, 23% of respondents rarely experienced domestic violence before the COVID-19 pandemic, but are frequently experiencing domestic violence now. Similarly, 79.6% of women experience domestic violence during and frequently after COVID-19 pandemic. Locally, our domestic violence cases have surged to an all-time high during and after the pandemic. In July 2022, Jamaica recorded a near 100% rise in domestic violence, the highest report tabulated by the Jamaica Constabulary Force in the last 5 years. That's not enough for an eye-opener? Why not remedy this scar on Jamaica's face? Oh, we have laws, and we have laws that penalize the perpetrators. Think about it. How much is being done to support these existing laws? Madam Speaker, will the government wait until women who have experienced gender-based abuse start coming and laying on the step of Gordon House before they decide that something needs to be done? Instead of coming here and ravishing havoc over which they call a policy, government, pull up on the stocks. Let's proceed to the financial constraint of our women in the labor market. Worldwide, women earn 81 cents for every US dollar earned by men, according to Statista.com. In Jamaica, our women earn an average 61 cents for every dollar earned by men. The compensation package that our women are receiving is no match for our male counterparts. How about we remove the gender gap pay? To boost earning, the government needs to expand the role our women play in the supply chain. Over the last few decades, 55% of the improvement of food security in developing countries has been driven by programs promoting women empowerment, as seen in an article published by the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner. Finally, we all know a plan without an action is just a futile idea. You can't build a great building on a weak foundation. Without a proper foundation, sorry. A tailored response and and actions are required to address the immediate challenges and to build back better. Thank you, Madam
Member
Speaker.
Dunbar, your time has expired. Member Fraser, Rafana Fraser.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I start my contribution, I wish to highlight that no one in the opposition proposed a feasible recommendation for a national mentorship program for our boys and young men. Madam Speaker, there is no limit to what we as women can do. Madam Speaker, our young men are underachieved and have been held back from maximizing their full potentials. A 2020 report by Christopher Clark titled Gender and Education in Jamaica and Boys and Inclusion in Education in the Caribbean concluded that a diversity of factors influence disengagement, including poverty, child labor, and illegal activities. But I would like to place emphasis on parents and role models. Madam Speaker, if we look into rural communities and if we look into institutions, we will see that we need to do more. More to change the parent and school gender beliefs, the parenting practice of tie the heifer, loose the bull, needs to stop. Boys are not just girls, need to be told, go take a book. Too many of our boys are allowed to get away with idling and playing for all day. Madam Speaker, in these communities, we need to support our boys with accessing strong role models for community leadership, like what would be done through the development of a national mentorship program, as mentioned by my colleagues. This mentorship program will comprise of the Way Up, Stay Up program. To expound on what my colleague has said, this program will target boys and men ages 10 to 24 years via a project where, as she said, male influencers will interact with primary, secondary, and tertiary male students. Through the program, influencers will share their testimonies and life experiences that can improve the students' life perspective and create opportunities for success. The influencers will focus on topics such as personal development, goal setting and acceleration, money management, entrepreneurship, and transformational leadership. In addition, the mentorship program will also include parenting workshops so that parents can become better role models for their children. Madam Speaker, in order for us to mold intelligent, problem-solving, and productive young men, they must have strong examples. The first place a child learns is from the home. And second is with our school. Having the Way Up Stay program in mentorship program in all schools across Jamaica, it would boost economic performance amongst the male students' population. And even further, it would address the factors I mentioned before, poverty and illegal activities. Madam Speaker, it takes effort and partnerships for the success of this initiative. I therefore propose, as Minister of Local Government and Rural Development and Member of Parliament for Western Kingston, to utilize our recreational centers to facilitate these projects. We will also partner with NGOs, community-based organizations, and government facilities, and government agencies, to identify positive influencers and role models. Madam Speaker, in closing, I know this motion will reduce male underachievement. I would love to also commend the government for putting forward a motion that does not exclude our boys and men. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member Fraser. Member Clayton, Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, guests, good afternoon. Where a woman rules, streams run uphill. This Ethiopian proverb serves to remind us that women are game changers and agents of change. Therefore, when we disempower women economically or otherwise, we only reduce our chances at achieving development in Jamaica. The inequality between women and men in levels of economic participation marginalizes women and robs the economy of their contribution to growth and development. Thus, this YWiL government and myself as the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for St. Andrew West Central and the Minister of Defence and Economic Growth and Job Creation are proposing a national action plan to address women's economic empowerment and participation in the sectors of education, digital transformation, the care sector, as well as emerging sectors, and ensuring our young boys no longer underperform in external exams over the next 5 years. Economic empowerment for women is very important in Jamaica, as research and statistics show that women who are economically disempowered are more likely to be entrenched in poverty or become marginalized. This government has customized policies, programs and initiatives to match the realities of women and boys. Undoubtedly, the pandemic has eroded a great deal of progress made towards Vision 2030 and the National Policy for Gender Equality. During the pandemic, women's unemployment rate rose to 10.3% in 2021, but pre-pandemic was 6.4%. For this reason, this government will implement programs to provide women with short and medium-term courses in digital technologies and logistics. As the Minister of Transport and Mining and the MP for Manchester Central have pointed out, women are underrepresented in the digital sector and lack the ITC skills. Therefore, to ensure women have the opportunity to make the most of emerging sectors such as the digital sector, we will build their skills capacity. Furthermore, according to the IDB study on digital transformation in 2022, women account for 32% of employees in the ICT sector in Latin America and the Caribbean. Therefore, to increase women and girls' participation in this sector through a joint program, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology will implement an internship program for women and girls to gain ICT skills and/or create the entry for women in this sector, thus boosting employment for women. According to CAPRI, women play many roles in social reproduction which are not market-oriented and consequently do not appear in national statistics, although it contributes greatly to the economy. So this means that we are taking care of everybody who goes out to work, but our work is unpaid. This reduces and also eliminates our opportunity to participate in the labor force. Furthermore, women in Jamaica earn approximately 12.5% less than their male counterparts. This government will enact and amend bills to ensure equal pay for the jobs done by women across all sectors. As I've heard the opposition mention that we need to address the gender pay gap, I hope that you are listening and being informed. Additionally, this government is committed to regulating child care and elderly care facilities, building more facilities, as well as partnering with the private sector to offer subsidies for access and affordability of these facilities. On the other hand, no, I don't know where you guys learned about gender equality, but there is no such thing where you oppress people when you get the upper hand. So it means that for our boys who are underachieving and underperforming, we must address this issue. Jamaican boys are less likely than girls to complete secondary education.
Prime Minister,
thank you.
You have exceeded your time by over 30 seconds.
I beg for time. 1 minute. Begging for a minute.
Order in the House. Prime Minister, you have exceeded your time by over 30 seconds.
Beg for a minute, please.
At this time, we are not able to grant you any additional time. So therefore, no motion will be moved. Member Richards, Opposition Leader.
Madam Speaker, it is clear that the government have not been consulting and wants to be on our side. We thank you for your recommendations, but we are not accepting members at this time. Why is it that you're going to create an app that already exists? Is this another tactic to waste resources? As the leader of the opposition, I want to make it clearly known that this motion is not inclusive and cannot be the action plan that this government seeks to implement. If this is what you refer to as action plan, as learned scholars, then maybe I should be questioning your credibility to lead this country. Madam Speaker, the government has to do more than just increasing employability. Thousands of tertiary students with a first degree are without a job. Thousands have been trained by various skill training institutions, and they too are without a job. When we stop at employability, we will continue to experience what we now have in Jamaica, a brain drain epidemic. Our goal should be more on the effective and efficient deployment of our human capital stock in critical areas for the country's development. How will we achieve this? I propose that there should be an effort on the part of the government and international partner to see the creation of cooperatives as a vital business model that is not only able to create jobs and revenues for the country, but will not be subjected to the rapid layoff as we have witnessed in the banking industry. A myriad of solutions have been proposed by youth scholars and development practitioners, which recommends that we provide greater incentives to retain highly skilled laborers. These are inclusive but are not limited to the following: better wages, human rights, change in the political system, more modern health and educational facilities. While these proposed solutions are of importance, greater weight ought to be placed on devising and articulating a strategy for the effective organization and deployment of our human capital in line with development goals and vision. Specifically, the vision that is 7 years from now. Yes, the 2030 vision that only seems to be in writing but not in action, like many of the proposed plans by the government. Speaking of action plan, the government has reiterated that they want to develop a mentorship program for boys. However, they fail to address that a community program for boys is but a band-aid to a festering wound. We must admit that boys are different from girls and condition the educational system to facilitate better learning outcomes. Once again, the government is being reactive in their responses. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Government, you're perishing. It is full time now you notice that you're majoring in the minor and your foundation is built on sand and lock structure. Government, it's time to do better. Take our solutions and put them into writing and action. We need better government. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member Richards. Minister.
So I would like to thank all honourable members for their contribution to the motion. I would like to express my gratitude to the opposition for their comments and recommendations as it relates to the areas of the motion that need bolstering, and I assure that these will be taken into consideration. I know this feat will not be easy, but I have no doubt that with our dedication, we can play our part in our country's journey to achieving women's economic empowerment and gender equality. Madam Speaker, I now ask that the motion be approved.
Members, you would have heard the question. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the sitting to enable us to hear remarks and greetings from parliamentary and other representatives.
Members, the question is that the sitting be suspended to enable remarks and greetings from parliamentary and other representatives. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. At this time, we'll have Ms. Alicia Todd, Secretary General of ParlAmericas.
Wow. Congratulations. It's been an amazing morning. I've learned so much. You should be very proud of yourselves. And thank you. Thank you for dedicating your time and commitment to working through this program for the last several weeks. It's been such an honor to work with you. Minister, thank you for allowing us to do this wonderful program here in Jamaica with yourselves, with the Bureau of Gender Affairs, with the Houses of Parliament. Thank you. Thank you to everybody in Parliament for all of your support to make this program such a success. I do have to acknowledge that you are the future. We work with the Parliament. We're so grateful to have them as a member, and I look forward to working with each of you when you take your official seat in Parliament someday in the future. This couldn't have been possible without the Government of Canada's support for this program, so I do want to acknowledge them. Thank you to Canada. And our partners, Caribbean Women in Leadership. And I have great news to share with you, Minister. The chapter for CWiL has newly been constituted in Jamaica, so you now have a Jamaica chapter. And not only that, the executive of that chapter, some of the members sit before you here. So they are the future, and they have taken up a role in CWiL to try and drive forward gender equality here in Jamaica. So again, thank you to all of you. Congratulations. And it's been such an honor to be on this journey with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Todd. Now we'll have Dr. Angela Brownberg. Please make her welcome.
Good afternoon to all of you. I wasn't here at the very beginning, only because Dr. Julius Garvey is here and I had to visit him in the constituency. But I have been extremely impressed with the contributions that you have made, with the confidence and courage with which you have made your arguments, and I love the banter coming as well from both sides of the aisle. The future is definitely in good hands. I wish you well. I hope that you have seen a different side from what you would have thought before you entered the room, sat in these seats, and stood and spoke from where you did, because it is different. I hope you get a chance to feel a little bit of what we feel when we get in here. And I hope that you are clear that, like you, our singular focus is really to improve the lot of Jamaicans. Thanks for stepping forward. Thanks for stepping forward. Thanks for doing what you have done today. And I hope you leave here with even a little bit of the passion that you displayed here to continue the work in your communities. Blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Brownberg. We'll now have the Most Honorable Juliet Olnett.
Ladies, members of Parliament, it was a pleasure spending the time listening to you today. Speaker, thumbs up. I'm sure you know why I especially love the Speaker. Time. The representative from East Rural St. Andrew, you did me proud. Thank you very much. And ladies, you all did us proud. It was a pleasure to get a sense of your appreciation of something that needed to be said to Jamaica and Jamaicans, that gender equity is not just about us as women wanting to forge ahead and holding anybody back. All the women in Parliament today as members gave a saying in various different ways. One hand can't clap. It requires, yes, it does require us as strong women, along with our men, to be able to make our communities, our families, and our country the best place in which to live. Ladies, I want you to go out in your communities. Minister Grange, I can tell you, has already started taking notes, and she is not going to leave you out. You will become a part and parcel of what we utilize coming out of communities, coming out of our young women and our young men to govern as we go forward. You had some excellent suggestions, and we will take them to heart as a government. Government, opposition, you did well. Continue to do well and continue to serve as strong women in Jamaica.
Thank you, Honorable Holness. And finally, this speaker doesn't need much introduction. Some of us may know her as Auntie Babs. All right. But at this point, I would just like to introduce her as the Honorable Olivia Babsy Grange. Hold on, Auntie Babs. The Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I won't let you limit my time. But I'll be very brief because I just want to first acknowledge the Most Honorable Juliet Holness, Deputy Speaker, and who left and came back so that she could be here at the end of the sitting. I want you to give her a big round of applause. I also want to specially acknowledge Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, who is chairman of the People's Chair of the People's National Chair of the People's National Party and Deputy House Leader for the opposition, leader of opposition business. And she's here also to give support. And of course, Alicia Todd and her team, please give ParlAmericas a big round of applause. And to certainly acknowledge folks who came out who are in the gallery who are representing various NGOs and other entities. I think we may even have some diplomats in the galleries from the Canadian High Commission. And members of Parliament, other members of Parliament who came out, I want you to give them all a big round of applause. And then, as Miss Lou would say, clap yourself. I want to hear you clap yourself. Pound it. And of course, I don't recall seeing more than one male member of Parliament.
We didn't invite them. We didn't invite them. No, we didn't invite them.
Huh?
We didn't invite them.
They were all members of Parliament were asked to come. I got up in this house and invited all members of Parliament. And I want you to specially recognize Member of Parliament Anthony Hilton. Well, you know, it's fine. At least we have a man in the minority in Parliament today. So that's fine. But just to say, you have all had a life-changing experience, haven't you? Yes. And make today become the first day of the rest of your lives as you move forward to become leaders. You have started that journey today. You're leaders in your own right. And in future, I will have the pleasure, I'm sure, of seeing some of you sitting in this house. Not this building, because, you know, we are going to be building a new parliament. But certainly, we will have a very comfortable Houses of Parliament facility for you when you get elected to Parliament. You have been trained, you have been given the tools with which now to go and further develop. This is your launching pad. I would like you to consider becoming active in politics. What I found so fascinating was most of you were recommended by sitting parliamentarians here. Some of you were recommended by NGOs or politically affiliated entities. And you were selected. I'm not sure what the process was, Alicia, but you ended up sitting maybe on the opposite side of the party you represent. Am I right? Yes. And I know some of you were very distressed, but you were able to fill the part and play the role. And you represented those who were recommended by the government members of parliament, but ended up sitting on the opposition side. You did very, very well. And those who were recommended by the opposition, who sat today on the government side, you did extremely well, especially the Prime Minister. But I just want to thank you. Thank you for making yourselves available. Thank you for being a part of history. We're going to do this again. And again. And again. Very good. The future looks great. Young women, welcome on board. And God bless you all. I want to thank the Houses of Parliament and the team, the clerk, the speaker who had to go off earlier. We want to commend the young lady who is doing the sign language. Wonderful. This has been a great experience. Thank you all, and God bless you all. And I'm sorry, I must acknowledge the Marshal. And the orderlies. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you, Minister Grange.
So, we're going to briefly distribute certificates. I'm going to ask the Most Honorable Andrew
Yeah, that's fine, Joe.
That's fine. It's about time we say that. Yes. Most Honorable Juliet Holness, Dr. Brown Burke, myself and Alicia, we will hand out certificates quickly. And as well as, will you please? Nana. I'm just going to say Nana. This is Nana, who is head of the Caribbean Women's She's a secretary. Secretary General?
No.
Secretary.
Board secretary.
Come on, introduce yourself for me, Nana. Come on. Nana should have said a few words in any case. Go ahead, Nana.
Honorable ministers, ladies, members in the benches, it's really been an honorable pleasure to be here. This is what CWiL is about. We believe in young women being modeled, being trained to take your seat in leadership position. You've made us very proud. We know the Caribbean is in a good place, a good future for gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you. So we'll be handing out certificates now. So we just...
He's straight ahead.
The camera is right up there.
Where's the camera?
He's straight ahead.
Above the car. Oh. Look for his mom.
Shafua Ferron. Asia, you're next.
Ooh.
Asia Spence.
Patrice Clayton. Crystal Fletcher. Crystal Fletcher. Ariana Dixon. Jelena Rowe. Amoya Clark. Amanda Slew. Kayla Bryan. Kayla Bryan. Rafana Fraser.
For the record. It helps for the record. Yeah. And then you're next. I think it helps for the record.
Megan Morgan. Monique Henry. Sabrina Bryan. Dania Cummings. Dania. Coming? Yes, she's coming. Rashida Campbell. Honorable. Alicia Sinclair. Kiara Weston.
You go getting some of the photos.
That's fine. My board member is there, so I'm fine. My board member is there, so I'm happy with you and happier with you in the photos, please. The girls will never forgive me, so please go back. Come. Danielle Jordan Bailey. Exactly. Dejeuner Vassal.
Dejeuner Vassal.
Danae Mills. Shanika Christie. Okay. Dr. Deandra Rudin. Jamila Romance. Bridget Bennett. Sorry, Chanel Dixon. Bridget, you're next. Bridget Bennett. Shante Blake. Jordan Nelson. Tamra Bryan. Anashika Crossdale. Tajna Lee Shields. Genevieve Richards. Jana Dunbar. Sandrine Morris. Axanium Morris. Go, Axania! Kayla Scott. Abigail Wedderburn. Tiana Morrison. Carol Thorpe. Carolina Holden, your certificate. Amelia Ferron.
Good job, good job. Well done.
Anicia Burton. Michaela Pitto. Yeah, she got his first. Chrisanne McEwen. And Daniel McGee.
Just before we finish the session, I just would like us to acknowledge other members of Parliament who have now joined us, along with heads of our women's advocate organizations. And CWiL. These, in fact, there were many hats, right? Like Lynette and others. But just to give them a big round of applause, we have Member of Parliament Terencia Morrison, Rhoda Crawford, Tamika Davis. Where's Tamika? Tamika Davis there. Right? And CWiL members, could you step forward and be recognized? Caribbean Young Women's Initiative. This has been great, right? So let me hear you bang the tables. Excellent. And we must give Tashana Sewell a special round of applause. And Mrs. Robinson, the head of Bureau of Gender Affairs. And Eilish, come on, Eilish, go right. And Dillis. Great. Hip hip. Hip hip. Hooray. Hip hip. Hooray. Hip hip. Hooray.
Members, this honorable house now resumes its sitting. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourn for a date to be fixed.
Members, you would have heard the question. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This honorable House now stands adjourned.